welcome to the Creative Foresight podcast. Today we're diving into a topic that affects some women more than others, yet remain under discussed. Menopause and perimenopause. What does this all mean? My guest is an incredible Korean Lana. So I'm going to do it again. My guest is incredible Korean Luna Ostaszki, founder of Hot or Just Me, an empowering online platform offering trusted products, expert advice, and support to a community for navigating menopause and with great confidence. Corinne's journey began with her own struggles through symptoms like hot flushes, brain fog, rings a bell for some of you out there, or some of you who are still going through it, like insomnia. This inspiring mission of hers to help women thrive during this transformative stage. Yet, Corinne's done a trailblazing entrepreneur journey herself. She's made history as the first American woman and Hispanic person to create an award winning Scotch whisky brand. Sounds interesting? Want to know more? Well, let's explore Corinne's story. Hello, Corinne.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's lovely to have you on. And before we go any further, I want to touch on a little bit about what got you to get into what we're going to be sharing today. And I'm so interested to know more about the Hot or Just Me. I mean, it's a clever name, but does it have anything to do with the midlife era that
All
you're
of it.
going
Yes.
through?
Thank you for asking. So, yeah, my hot flashes started in my early 40s. I'm 47 now. And it was a simple and often asked question to pretty much everyone around me was, hey, is it hot or is it just me? And that led me to realize first that it was
Very
mostly just me.
true.
And also that I was
Okay.
deep into perimenopause. So I had other symptoms
Okay.
like brain fog, anxiety, hair loss, and reaching out to my first doctor wasn't much help. And then finally found the right doctor, had good conversations around HRT, and eventually found some really wonderful products and services that made a huge impact in my life. And so I created Hot or Just Me so that I could share these with other women.
Yeah, I love the playfulness of it all. Not only you're acknowledging the common perception of this life for many women, but also putting a spin on it so there's no embarrassment with it. It's kind of
Mhm.
a cheek, tongue and cheek kind of playfulness around it as well. I love it.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah,
you
it's
had a
coming
great
for, it's coming
response
for
from
all of
that?
us. So, yeah, I wanted to
Yes,
make sure that it was relatable.
right. And I want to go into a little bit about like how other cultures see menopause because other cultures sometimes don't have a name for menopause. They just go through it. But I will get to that a little bit. But what's really important to me is like, as you talk about the challenges and you being an entrepreneur, what came first, the entrepreneurship or the hot flushes? Which one came first, the menopause?
Uh, well, it's funny. This is actually my third act in life when it comes to career. I was a graphic designer
Okay,
for almost 17 years, and then I made the leap of becoming an entrepreneur and started a Scotch whiskey brand. And the first time I started a business, I had, a lot of that imposter syndrome, the inner critic that definitely slowed me down. And it took about 3 years to finally make the move and launch the business. And this time around, I think having had done the journey before as a business owner and found success, and eventually the brand was acquired. So I wasn't as scared this time around to start a business, but I still had a little bit of that inner critic and imposter syndrome because, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. Like, what business do I have talking about perimenopause and menopause? But I was able to kind of silence that inner critic and tell her to just pipe down. Like, I've got this. I am a woman dealing with this. And, I consider myself an expert in some of these solutions for sure. So, starting the business this time around went a lot faster, maybe 3 months instead of 3 years.
right. And I suppose the difference, I would assume, is the passion behind it, right? When you live in it, it becomes a well-driven journey, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a term for it called scratching your own itch, which is, excuse me, starting a business around, something that's really bothering you and that you have found,
Yeah.
solutions for and that you want to share this with other people. And I think that's how a lot of wonderful businesses get started. It's out of a need that you've found a solution for and you want to just shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah, it's kind of something about like learning for yourself and sharing it with others as you go along, right? Um,
Exactly.
so, with many women feeling isolated, during this stage of life, and as you pointed out, is it hot in here or is it just me? Did you experience that yourself, that isolating experience? I know you talked about the doctors reaching out to doctors, but with friends, families, relationships, work colleagues.
Yeah, I think it's a very common feeling to think, am I alone? Is this normal? Am I going crazy? What's happening to my body? And you kind of at first have this like inner dialogue, and then, there might be that random Google search, like, why are my periods so heavy? Or why am I waking up in sweat? And then, you might start to open it up to your girlfriends and this like idea of girlfriend medicine, like, hey, is this happening to you? Have you noticed this? And you might have that elder friend who's kind of gone down that rabbit hole and said, like, you should definitely check out, HRT, or try talking to your doctor about it. Or it sounds like you might be in perimenopause. How old are you? Have you talked to your mom? Like, that kind of conversation. And then, eventually finding the right doctor. For me, it was kind of a lonely experience, because when I approached my doctor about my symptoms like insomnia or, anxiety and mood swings, he suggested I take some antidepressants or some Xanax to sleep. And I'm not someone who, is a pill popper by any means. And so it really scared me to
Right.
think, like, that the first solution was this like heavy pharmaceutical solution. And then I came to realize that in my research, that most doctors in the United States, I know it's very different in the UK, only have about 3 hours of training on menopause during their residency. So they are, maybe uninformed or ill equipped to understand menopause. And so what I found was there's this wonderful website in the United States called menopause.org. And it's a great resource to find doctors who have gone through an extra level of certification. There are about 2,500 practitioners listed on the site there. And there are also some really wonderful telehealth options now that are covered by insurance, like MIDI Health, Evernow, and Alloy. So some really wonderful resources out there for women who want to have that conversation with their doctor.
Yeah, and so nicely that you talked about that, because along with menopause, there are women out there who are neurodivergent. They may have ADHD, they may be on the autism spectrum, a whole array of things. And if you think menopause is one of the things that they have less time to spend on kind of understanding the symptoms more to support women, with the other things that come along with it, my goodness, it is a minefield. And I want to know, just out of curiosity, with your hot or just me, have you found it's worked with the Google search? I'm just curious because I remember when women around me, including myself, when you say, is it hot or just me? You're clarifying your children, is it too warm in here and so on. Well, no, honestly, I'm really curious. Is it
Yeah.
one of the main searches that women look into?
It's wild. I would have thought that hot flashes and night sweats would be the most popular section of our site, but it turns out it's actually low
Okay.
libido and vaginal dryness where most of our sales are coming from right now. And it's curious because it's not
Okay.
something that's talked about as much, but it is one of the most more common symptoms. So, to give you
I
kind of the top
see.
10, we'd say the
Please.
top 10 symptoms are irregular periods, hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, vaginal dryness, mood changes and irritability, joint and muscle aches, brain fog, decreased libido, and weight gain. And then postmenopause, add on urinary incontinence and frequency. There's bone density loss and heart health concerns as well. So quite a few. There's about 100 known symptoms through perimenopause, but those I would say are probably like the top 10.
Top 10. Goodness. So, with that said, I know that you've got a personal quiz on your platform, right?
Yeah.
What does that tell you about some of the women who want support?
Yeah, what's great about the quiz is, well, first off, it doesn't require any email address. You can just, take the quiz. I think it's so annoying when you spend 5 minutes of time to just kind of get some results, and then, you have to like go through a sign up process. So there's none of that.
Yeah.
And basically, it's
Okay.
just your age, what stage are you in, if it's perimenopause, menopause, post, or you don't know. Um, and then what symptoms are you experiencing? And then it just serves up some of our suggested products that might be helpful for those symptoms. And then we also have quite an extensive learning area of our site, about 50 articles related to perimenopause symptoms individually, any kind of topics around bone loss, around diet, acupuncture, HRT, sleep, and so much more. So really offering a lot of resources beyond just products. And then, people have reached out on social media as well for a community, but I find that there's already quite a few communities on Facebook that women have tapped into.
Yeah, I've noticed there's quite a few around. I mean, one of the things that you do offer, you talked about your products. Can you sort of discuss a couple of your products that you thought wouldn't be quite interesting or be in demand and found out that it actually is?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the definite ones are around sleep. So I like to tell people that sleep is so important, right? Like if you have a bad night's sleep and you think about your next day, you wake up and you might be kind of moody and irritable. You might make bad food decisions. You will probably skip going to the gym. When it's times to get to work, you might have some brain fog or concentration issues. And then when it's time to kind of get in the mood with your partner, you're just kind of tired and you don't want to, right? So all of these things are kind of like a domino effect based on a poor night's sleep. So I like to, offer a lot of tips and advice on the site as well. So we offer, taking magnesium at night, avoiding large meals close to bedtime, cutting out your afternoon caffeine or coffee or tea, and not exercising too close to bedtime. Obviously, drinking alcohol late at night can also affect your sleep cycle. And then, in terms of your room, like what does it look like? Are you sleeping close to the air vent? Are you keeping your temperature cold? Does it kind of kick in even colder, say around like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.? And what do you have on your person and on your bed, right? So we have a selection of cooling sheets and cooling blankets that have done remarkably well, especially the cooling blanket, I think because it's more of an individual thing that you don't have to share with your partner.
Mm.
And then we have these wonderful temperature regulating pillowcases. So it's really just kind of focuses on that area where you do feel more of the hot flash sensation of your neck and your back and your face. And then we have quite a few wonderful sleep shirts as well. So nighties and sleep shirts that are very breathable fabric, and those have done really well. And then I know we're on a podcast, so you can't see me, but I'm wearing a cooling necklace and a cooling bracelet right now. They are freezable, so you put these beautiful pieces of jewelry in the freezer, and then you wear them during the day, and they help touch on the pulse points to kind of give you that cooling effect. And
All
you can wear
right,
them if you're
yes.
gardening or doing a sport like tennis or golf or something like that.
Mm. I find that, yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that's really helpful, isn't it? When you think about the cooling points, right? No, it's seemed quite simple, but very effective, obviously. When you talked about sleep and you talked about magnesium, I mean, there's all different types of magnesium. What are the magnesium, if you can recall, about like should be focusing on, because there's quite a lot, do different things. Is it the
Yeah.
complex or is it single magnesiums that you should be focusing on?
So there is this one specific brand that I love. It's called Morphus. They have magnesium supplement for menopause, and it's a magnesium glycinate. And it is
Okay.
something that I use at night. So, what I find is if I take magnesium during the day, my body has absorbed it by the time it's bedtime. And so, what I do is I take it at night, and it's just remarkable the nights that I don't take it. Maybe I've forgotten, or I'm traveling and didn't bring it. I can tell the difference when I wake up in the morning. And then I have heard from people sometimes if they take magnesium that it might have an impact on their tummy, like their digestion. So, I think it's good to just kind of start small. Maybe take half a capsule if you're noticing that one is too much. So yeah, that one's really helpful.
Yeah. And also you talk about the importance of getting families and you talk about relationships and intimacy. I
Mm.
mean, it's obviously very important. I mean, this is the time I'm finding that a lot of divorces happen or
Oh yeah.
separations happen Oh,
Yeah.
okay, right. So, what support do you think couples can get? And should couples actually throw the towel in at that point? Because it seems quite a stressful time, going through the midlife crisis, the ladies going through the menopause, and
Yeah.
intimacy is not the same. What
It
say
is,
you?
yeah. I mean, it's such a challenging time in life, right? We're taking care of children, we're taking care of our parents. Maybe we've dealt with some loss as well. And, trying to
Yeah,
balance work and, self-care, if that's even a thing at that point, right? Because there's so many things to balance. So, when it comes time to your
yes,
relationship, sometimes that's like the last on the list. And, how do we move that higher up on the list, right? Like this is our partner, the person that we've chosen to kind of go on this journey through life with, and we want it to last. And so, we change, our partners change, our situations change, and it's hard to think that that we know that person, right? Because that person
yeah,
is changing as we are, right? And so how do you get curious about your partner and continue to stay curious? And I think the mind is the most important sexual organ. And there might be moments when, you're exhausted and you might not be in the mood for, intimacy, but maybe there's something else that you can do to kind of, get curious about your partner. And so I found some really wonderful tools, and we have this linked on the site as well. Um, but
okay,
there's a series called the Gottman Institute. They help couples that are struggling, and we found them to be a wonderful resource for us. And they
okay.
also have this app called the Love Decks, and basically they're questions that you can ask your partner. And this could be like date night questions, or just like long car ride questions, but just kind of to get curious about your partner. And then they also have this series more for intimacy called the Salsa Cards. And those are available in mild, medium, and spicy. And those are just really wonderful to kind of, get in the mood, and it kind of
Okay,
takes some of the pressure off of just the physicality of it, right? I've
okay,
also found
right.
these two apps that are fantastic. They are Dipsy and Quinn, and they are erotic audio stories. So what's great about this is, you're not watching a video thinking like, oh, I don't look like that, or my body doesn't do that. And so what I love about the erotic audio stories is that it kind of gets your mind out of the way. And you might not be in the mood that moment, but you could say something like, oh, well, let's hear this story and see if it gets us there. And at the very
Right.
least, you have this like enjoyment together, or you share an experience. And then we also have various
Yeah.
lubrications and tools and toys on the site as well.
Okay. So with going back to the spicy, what did you say? Spice the cards.
Yeah, so it's called the
Yeah.
salsa cards, almost like, like a
Okay.
salsa. So they have
All
mild,
right.
medium, and spicy.
Right. So you can't eat them. Sorry.
No, no, no. It's
They're
it's
they're
just
not
for
edible.
fun.
That's so fun. And also, like, if you get the whole point is to bring life back into your love life. Um, the other thing is that I do they have something that women can take to get them in the mood, like a supplement?
I don't have those on the site. I haven't explored those yet, but it is something that I am looking into. So if any of your
Okay.
listeners have some recommendations, by all means, reach out.
Okay, I'll let you know. No, joking.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to actually talk more about like the services and the support that you offer people coming out. And I would say I wouldn't even say I will come out and really own in their experiences because there is a bit of a taboo when it comes to menopause. People think possibly you're whining, you're making a bit of a fuss. It
Mm.
can't be as serious as you're showing or expressing, or
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's so hard because a lot of this is internal, right? Like our mood
Mm,
changes, or anxiety is another big one, brain fog. It's not something physical that people can see, right? So sometimes it feels like, that we're alone or that we're suffering silently. And so I think it's really important just to be able to share for women that they are not alone, and that, a lot of us are having these symptoms sometimes, in different levels of severity or different moments in time, right? Like everybody's journey is so unique. But I think it's just really important to know that there is support out there, that there are not only medical professionals, but that cognitive behavioral therapists. It's important to talk to people about what's happening, so that you know that you don't have to suffer silently.
Yeah.
And then,
And you
oh, sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. What were you
Oh, I
saying?
was going to say that, it's
No.
also a shame, that it's like such a stigma in our society that like aging is looked so down upon, right? Like aging is beautiful. We have this amazing gift that we've been able to live this long on this planet, right? Some people die early, or they don't get to have a healthy life. And so, to be able to just kind of embrace our age as women, and all of the experiences that we've been able to accomplish along the way, I think it's something to celebrate instead of to be ashamed of.
And you're definitely celebrating, because what I love about your journey is that you're actually continuing with not only creating a new business and doing really well at it, but also your other business that you're doing. And some women feel, maybe it's too much to handle and they have to let quite a few things go. But what I like about your journey is that you're showing that it can be done, and you've got a few survival things in the toolkit. And I want to ask you, if you can choose three things to put
Oh.
in your menopause survival kit, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think it depends on your symptoms. So right now,
Apart of,
this,
apart from
yeah.
the whiskey, apart from the whiskey, of course.
That one's even in small doses now too. So I would say probably my cooling jewelry, my cooling
Okay.
blanket, and probably my eye mask. And so yeah, those would probably be the three. But I should say there is a book that I consider to be almost like the Bible of menopause, and it's called The New
Please
Menopause by
share.
yeah, Dr. Mary Claire Haver wrote a book called The New Menopause, and it talks a lot about just navigating hormonal changes, and goes into depth around hormone therapy, and does so in a really beautiful and authentic way. And I like to recommend that book for people. There's also another wonderful book that's coming out soon called How to Menopause by Tamsin Fadal. And she's a journalist that made an amazing movie called The M Factor that's available online to stream. And that one should be coming out, I think, in April.
In April. Okay. Tell us about what your next journey will be. I know you're working wonderfully what you have, and I want you to share with my listeners, like, what can they expect when they go onto your website, and what is your next journey that you're going to be taking?
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, right now I have a couple of, let's say, symptom categories open on the site. So products and services are for hot flashes and night sweats, vaginal dryness and low libido, insomnia and fatigue, and hair and skin changes. And we have a bookstore and a gift shop. And over the next few months, we'll be rolling out other categories like anxiety, mood changes, brain fog, urinary incontinence, heavy periods, and more. And eventually rolling out a services directory. So, a place where you can find not only medical providers, but also alternative modalities like therapists, acupuncturists, hair treatment centers, etc. And eventually, hopefully, roll out to international shipping as well.
International shipping. I was going to ask you, the stuff that you have on your website, if someone's in the UK, my listeners in the UK and all over globally, would they be able to access some of the things that you have on your site?
Unfortunately, not yet. But I think by
Okay.
the end of the year, my hope is that we will get there. And yeah, I think the UK, as compared to the US, is well ahead of us in terms of menopause awareness and support. And I frequently look to UK sites and resources, especially when it comes to menopause and the workplace initiatives,
Yes.
as a guiding light.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you that you've given us shout out to the UK. I know we've been doing some great work here, but it's always lovely to have people globally sharing their experiences like you have been doing. So everybody, keep abreast of what your journey is going to be going forward. I know we're going to flip it. I would like to flip it a little bit because I want to touch on alcohol and menopause. What should women be aware of when they're drinking alcohol and the menopausal symptoms?
Yeah, it's interesting as someone who spent 10 years in the alcohol industry and telling people to drink and now being a little older and saying, hey, maybe if, you're having a different relationship with your tolerance, it might be time to consider, maybe drinking less or, not drinking as much in
Okay.
the evening because it might affect your sleep cycle. And as we discussed, sleep being so important, how can we prioritize that? I think right now we are in a time more than ever where there's so many wonderful options for low alc beverages or non-alc beverages. And they have that same kind of feel to get the ritual, of having a cocktail or having a beer or having a wine and either having a lower alcohol content or no alcohol at all. And I think that's it's something that anecdotally I've definitely noticed among myself and friends that our drinking styles have changed as we've aged, and maybe like one glass gets us to where we were, whereas before we had a very high tolerance. And so time's definitely changing, but thankfully there are a lot of wonderful products out there to kind of match us.
Okay, so I can't take your whiskey before bedtime then, would be
I mean,
advisable.
I still do, but in moderation, have a lot of water, make sure that it's not on an empty stomach, and all the things that we're supposed to do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. What's the point of getting to this stage in your life if you can't just let loose a little bit? Oh my
exactly.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful having you on. Now, I would like to ask you before you go, I keep saying that before you go and you're still here, but what is the most funniest advice have you heard so far?
Oh gosh. I don't know if there's so much of like funny, but I think that it's just like that. I think it's just a very misunderstood, right? That people are like, oh, it's fine, or you're okay, or there's nothing wrong. And I think that that alone is kind of funny. You're saying like, hey, no,
Yeah, how
we're
dare
definitely,
you?
yeah, like just to kind of like, oh, it's all in your head, and it's like, I don't think so. So yeah, or
No.
I think it's also I think the one that's a little tricky is that there's a lot of tests out there, but the your hormones fluctuate so much during the day.
Yes.
So making sure that
Right.
you do something maybe like a Dutch test, or take all of the considerations that your hormones will fluctuate
Hmm.
over time, that you do have to kind of rule out anything major, but to have real conversations with your doctor, if they're saying that there's nothing that you can push back and find
You can
the
push
right
back.
support. Exactly.
Yeah, and what I like about what you have so far is that all the other symptoms that are not talked about, and then people may be too embarrassed to say, and so relying on the hormonal tests for you to kind of rely on how your body is changing, and it's not in your head. There are little things that you want to kind of figure out or confirm or have a conversation, bit of a discussions about. Your website sort of covers that a little bit. How can my listeners reach out to you and your details? And what advice would you like to leave or parting words to my listeners?
Oh, thank you. Well, we can be found at hotorjustme.com. The links are in the show notes, and we have a discount code for listeners crazy over 40s for 10% off of your order.
Yeah.
And we can be found on all social media at Hot or Just Me. And just to leave your listeners with, just knowing that you're not alone, that this is normal, this is happening to everyone in some way, shape, or form. Even men have a version of this called andropause. And our kids have
Yes.
puberty, and we've got perimenopause and menopause, and so it's
Absolutely.
coming for all of us. And so just to realize that you're not alone, that this is totally normal, and that there's help out there for you.
There's help out there for us. Thank you so much for coming on the Crazy Over 40s Life podcast.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me share my story, and for the time.
Wonderful. And all the details that you just talked about will be on the description link on the podcast. So thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you. Let me get back on
No,
camera.
thank you.